1972, the family had been talking for several years about getting together and having a family reunion. We really didn't know that much about how to go about it, but it was Ella Allgood. Some of you remember Ella. And she is the one who told us that we needed to stop talking about it and get started with it. And Uncle Buddy from Chicago was here at the time, and my mother and her sisters, all Parhams, and they decided that they were just going to jump in and start the reunion. The very first reunion was in 1972 in Trenton, New Jersey, but because Trenton didn't really have a hotel that we could use, we had to go out to 206 in Bordentown to what then was the Holiday Inn and have our reunion. The very first committee was made up of Jerry Murphy, Doris Jackson, Audrey Royster, and myself, Shirley Powell. And we just started going out and looking for a hotel. We found the Holiday Inn, and we started getting everything together, all the addresses, and getting the word out through the family. And that first family reunion, we had close to 200 people. The hotel, it was hard for them to even accommodate us because there was so many of them. We out there on the floor trying to dance and bumping in everybody and everything, but we just had a really, really super time. And as the years went on and we continued to have the reunion, we began to bring in our other cousins. The Kelleys came in, and we just have continued to love this reunion and continue to work to have it. One of the things was that the Trenton committee had said, well, because the family was so spread out, we really needed to go to other places and not just have it in Trenton all the time. And so that's what we started to do. And Chicago and New York jumped in and they took the reunion, and we just had a ball. And from then, it has just grown over time, and the reunion now takes place from California all the way over to New York and New Jersey. Our forefathers and foremothers are what we want to honor and to recognize each time that we have this reunion. Because all know that our forefathers were slaves. And when we realize how far we have come as a people, we cannot take that lightly. And our children can't take it lightly. And it's important for us to let them know where their humble beginnings came from. Rising up from the red clay of Georgia, our ancestors persevered as slaves, sharecroppers, small farmers, and itinerant ministers. My grandfather and some of the Kelleys were itinerant ministers in Georgia. And that's why when you go south, you'll hear them talk about the first Sunday church, or the second Sunday church, or the fourth Sunday church, because the ministers had to travel around in order to minister, and they couldn't minister to one church. They would go from church to church, being the pastors. Therefore, we can only imagine what they faced through discrimination, poverty, and fear. We've been told stories that some of them had to escape and even change their names for fear of being killed. The Michigan family is one of those families because their grandfather had to leave the South because he helped his brother who had killed somebody. And for fear that they'd both be killed, they had to leave. His name was John Parham, and he left the South and went to Michigan. But when he went to Michigan, he changed his name. So his grandchildren had to discover a few years back what their grandfather's real name was, and that they were, in fact, related to the Parhams. Some never heard from their brothers and sisters since leaving the South, but we believe that in the end they all emerged stronger and wiser as they moved their families to the North and other areas of the country, seeking better opportunities and escaping oppression. We know the story of one strong matriarch who we are all related to, and she was called Mo Watson. She was a slave until 12 years of age, and she held on to her roots even through the adversity that she went through. She was born Lucy Smith in Lumpkin, Stewart County, Georgia, in 1853. Her family was split up when they were all sold to the Caucasian families. Her mother and brother to a family in Alabama, her father to Georgia, and the rest of the children were sold to different parts of Georgia. A woman named Miss Perkins in Virginia, Caucasian, kept Lucy, and she said she slept at Mrs. Perkins' feet to keep warm. One day Lucy heard the cooks talking, saying that the blacks would soon be free. And one morning while eating, she suddenly heard the sound of a cannon, which was the signal that freedom had come. On that day, Lucy was 10 years old. Subsequently, as she grew older, she married Jim Favors at the age of 15, and they had 3 children. After he died, she later married Harry Watson. There were 8 children from that union. After raising her 11 children, she later had to raise 6 more after her daughter, Maggie Watson Jackson, died in Florida. Even through adversity, she managed to become a midwife, delivering many children in the white community, as well as some of her own grandchildren. I was fortunate enough to take my mother back south before she died to the city of Richland, where she grew up. And she took us to the building, the county building, where Mo Watson used to take her as a little child when the midwives would be meeting. It was a wonderful trip. It's something that, you know, when you've experienced it, it's hard to explain to people, you know, what it was like. Eventually, Mo Watson watched her children leave one by one, seeking their own new beginnings. 2 of her daughters, Docia, who married William Parham, and Beulah, who married John Kelley, settled in Trenton, New Jersey. The Favors settled in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Chicago, along with some of the Watsons. The Parhams settled in Michigan, Alabama, and Virginia, and the Kelleys in New Jersey. So you can see how we're all tied together. Today, the Parham, Watson, and Kelley families and all their branches stretch from east to west, north to south, and the limbs on those branches have far exceeded what our ancestors could only hope for. But the legacy that they left should not be taken lightly. And we, as their children, must always remember that we have not made it on our own strength, but on our forefathers' faith in God and the prayers and sacrifices that began 148 years ago when a 10-year-old slave girl jumped up and down, proclaiming that freedom